This is my custom electric motorcycle, and this is what it looks like now. I decided to wrap mine because I want my bike to look different than every other Fly e-bike RZ. This is the cheapest electric motorcycle, and I'm going to be showing you how to wrap yours on a budget. Please like and subscribe down below if you are new here. Leave a comment. I read basically every single one, but let's jump straight into this. And here is all of the materials that you are going to need to be able to wrap your bike. You will need a razor blade, applicator card, heat gun, knifeless tape, your vinyl, which comes in rolls like this. You'll need rubbing alcohol and paper towels to clean it before you apply it. Now let me walk you through my process for wrapping each individual piece. First, you're going to want to start with your vinyl and cut it to approximately the size and shape, leaving it larger than the piece you are trying to wrap. I prefer this 3M 2080 as I find it sticks very well and it's very consistent for wrapping parts. Next thing you're going to do is clean the entire thing with rubbing alcohol. That way there's no residue that will show up underneath the wrap and will adhere around the edges. When you apply the vinyl to your piece, you want to make sure you stick it to the largest, flattest surface that you have. Make sure to center your vinyl and leave enough overhang, that way it wraps around the edges when you get to that stage. Don't be afraid to unstick and stick back down the vinyl, and you're going to want to use your heat gun when you get to the more sharp corners or more extreme features of the piece. It's honestly a super easy process, it just takes a lot of time and effort to get it right. This part that I'm showing you now was one of the last pieces I did, but let's go back to the very beginning of this project. This was the very first piece of the bike that I wrapped. I chose this one because it was flat and relatively simple, and I'd never wrapped anything before. So this is me just trying to figure it out by brute force. And this is the first panel done. Is it perfect? Not quite, but we are going to be increasing the quality of the wraps as we go, as we gain experience. I was feeling a little bit more confident coming into the second panel, but I was going to try a little bit of a different method to sticking it on, but honestly, it's easiest just to put it right on yourself rather than trying to stick the part to the vinyl. And don't be afraid to take the vinyl back off if you don't get it right on the first try. The wrinkles on it usually can be smoothed out with just pushing it down, or you can use the heat gun to make it a little bit more pliable. On your larger pieces, sometimes it can be helpful to not pull the vinyl completely off the protective backing. That way you're not working with such a large surface area sticking to it at the same time. On this piece, I had a ton of success with the applicator card, just pushing it off of the protective backing directly onto the piece. It just laid on super smooth and it was super easy. Once I got the largest surface area stuck down, I decided to trim off some of the extra vinyl to make it a little bit easier for me to work with it. And now you can enjoy me struggling to figure out my first couple of compound curves. Now we're applying some knifeless tape to our tank, that way we can cut the vinyl cleanly and have nice crisp lines of the part that we want wrapped. Now I'm going to cut the vinyl and apply this to the tank. I probably could have trimmed the vinyl a little bit closer to the size that I needed, and I was a little bit wasteful here, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't cut it too close to the edges and that this would be a seamless line, as you guys are going to see this part while I'm riding around in my videos. The tank is not flat enough for me to be using the applicator card, so you're going to see me pushing the vinyl around with my hands and pulling on it and stretching it and using the heat gun to make this fit. And now it's time for round 2 on the other side of the tank. This whole process just takes a lot of time and patience, and you just gotta make sure that you're taking care of all the little details as you see them. Once you get it stuck down, you can cut off the excess material. I had never used knifeless tape before, so I couldn't figure out how to make it work. I ended up just cutting along the knifeless tape and it protected the material underneath. Next, I'm disassembling the fairing. That way I can wrap each individual piece nice and cleanly, and you won't be able to see the seam lines of the vinyl. Since I decided to buy 5-foot by 1-foot rolls of vinyl, I needed to use 2 pieces to cover this. So I decided to put a seam line right on the body line to try and help hide it. This part was actually quite challenging. Not only did I have quite a bit of a curve that this piece had, which made lots of wrinkles, but where the light sits is actually inset, so you have to push down into there. And now it's time to put the second piece of vinyl on this part. Hopefully the seam line will not be visible while it's on the bike. And yes, I do see that my cut line with the tape right there look terrible. When you're working with parts that have a lot of angles on them, you often just have to sit there and work on it with your fingers and just keep pressing and pulling until the vinyl just sits perfectly on it. Now we're wrapping the top of the fairing. We're using a piece of vinyl that was actually kind of just a piece of scrap from one of the other pieces I had already wrapped, but it basically perfectly lined up to wrap this top piece. Okay, it doesn't perfectly fit, but we can patch that little piece that it doesn't quite cover. Now we're moving on to the fairing on the other side of the bike. This is also gonna be 2 parts. And I definitely don't want to forget my knifeless tape going under this part so that we can cut the vinyl. In this part, you can see me heating the entire sheet of vinyl and pulling on it. That way it has some sort of curvature as I try to stick it down. If I try to stick this as a flat sheet, it will just give me wrinkles and bubbles and be very difficult to work with. And just like the first one, this is the second piece going onto it. And now it's time to do the top side of the other fairing. This one I have a big enough piece that I'm gonna try and do it all in one single piece. A little piece of advice if you choose to do this yourself is to clean up all of your holes and connector clips, that way the vinyl doesn't make it difficult for reassembly later. The rest of the bike was already taken apart for the power upgrades we were working on. Now, I need to take apart the tail to add a little bit of color to those parts as well. This is the plate that sits between the back seat and the front seat of the bike, and it was the very first part that I showed you in the video, but it was the third to last one that I actually wrapped. This part was difficult because it has these 2 heavy inset parts that you have to heat up and stretch the vinyl into there. I'm using the edge of the applicator card to be able to push the vinyl deep down and push the air pockets out of the seams. You have to be careful not to add any wrinkles, which I did add, and on this side I even burned a hole through the vinyl, which I did patch later on. And since I was a little bit wasteful while wrapping the bike, I was running a little low on vinyl. So for the last two pieces, I just decided to wrap the top plane of them. I'm just applying my knifeless tape before I start applying the vinyl, that way we can get our nice clean lines. And yes, I do know how to use knifeless tape. You just have to put your thumb on the table and snap it up, but I just kind of preferred cutting it with a knife on the knifeless tape. The knifeless tape protected the paint underneath while I did that. Now that everything is all wrapped, I'm gonna reassemble the tail and then put one side of the bike back on. I'm not gonna fully reassemble the bike because I am not quite done with my power upgrades and I still have to mess with the wiring in this bike. Just as a reminder, this is what my bike looked like before, and this is what it looks like now. It's such a massive transformation. I'm so happy with the way that this wrap came out, and I can't wait to finish putting more power upgrades on this bike. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe below, and I am going to be bringing you a video of this thing running on the new power very, very soon. So stay tuned. Okay, thanks for watching. Bye now.